Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the session. I'm Ed Kless, and today we are going to talk about a subject that I really have a lot of fun talking about, which is this notion of innovation beyond technology. And got a short period of time today, so we're going to jump absolutely right into the topic at hand. And I want to start here, and that is to say, when you think of technology, usually you're thinking of something like this, right? Some kind of a technological innovation that happens. I'm sorry, when you think about innovation, you're thinking about a technology, something, the latest Apple, the latest Android, the latest device, even maybe some software, but it's usually technical in nature. We've almost equated innovation with the latest technology lately, but I think a better way to think of innovation is really when we have disparate ideas that perhaps come together and form something that's completely new that we haven't really thought about before. One of my favorite examples is this. I really love this concept of the skateboard and the stroller being mushed together, right? So there's that example. We take disparate things that you wouldn't think of normally that belong together, the skateboard and the stroller, put them together in one thing, and voila, we have a new thing. And I think, how great would this have been? I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I probably would have a better relationship with my son since he was the older one, since I have countless times remember him, dragging along the side of the stroller. If I just said, hey, come on, buddy, hop on, and away we go in the stroller, would have made life a lot easier. So this notion of putting things together from sometimes different areas can be pretty interesting to think about. And let's face it, accountants don't necessarily have the best reputation from an innovation standpoint. I guess that's okay to a certain degree. I mean, this to me is probably the best innovation in accounting technology in the last 20 or so years, the shift from putting the receipts in the shoebox to putting them in the Ziploc bag. No, I'm kidding. I did actually make this slide myself with my own receipts from a number of years ago, and usually gets a good laugh. But what I wanted to talk today about is some innovations that have been done in the business world that are not related to technology, and even perhaps point out some ways that maybe you can take these ideas and leverage off of them in your practice. So let's talk about it. First one is I want to talk about an innovation in pricing. Now, this was done by the company Audi in Germany and has become fairly ubiquitous. So you probably have seen this one, but I want to point out that I think it's important for us to talk about because it's something that I think we can apply to the professions as well. What they did was they were sitting around a meeting and they were saying, okay, well, we want to have these special this month or this quarter, and they were looking at their spreadsheet. The finance team's all looking at this, saying, well, we'll give 3,000 euros off of the sticker price of the car. And there was someone on the team who was a behavioral economist who made, well, can't we do any better? And the finance team said, well, 4,000 euro would be better, but we've run the financial numbers and we can't make that work, so it's got to be 3,000 euros. He said, no. Instead of taking the 3,000 euros off the sticker price of the car, how about instead we give them an additional 3,000 euros or dollars, whichever way you want to think about this, on top of their trade-in. Their finance people are all sitting around looking at one and go, well, it's the same thing. He said, no, it's the same thing if you're a finance person, but not if you're a regular human being like the rest of us. And it turns out that this guy was absolutely correct, that in one test market, 2 cities in northern Germany, it accounted for an additional 20,000 cars being sold in 1 year, compared in the 2 cities where they test marketed these 2 things. And the reason why this is because the perception is that $3,000 or euros on top of the trade-in value of your car, which let's say is 7,000, that looks like a much better deal because it is a bigger percentage of the trade-in value. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting 50% roughly more off of my trade-in value, as opposed to less than 10% off the price of the car. Now, I think this has become, as I said, ubiquitous. Lots and lots of car companies have now moved to this, that they give the trade-in is now taken off at the different price. But I mean, I think this is important for us to think about, especially if any of you do any kind of implementation where you're trying to get your customer to move from, say, an old system to a new system, put something in place, some monetary reward for them in place, where you say, all right, once we go into and you start using the new system and you're fully live on the new system, we will buy your old system from you for, and put a price on it. And I think what you'll find is that there's less apt to be people asking for discounts and what it will also do is get them to admit, hey, we're live on the new system, because they want that money. So I think we can apply some of this thinking, this behavioral economic thinking, to some of the things that we do. Okay, next example. This is around innovating experience, and some of you, many accountants I know, for whatever reason, accountants spend lots of time in Las Vegas at conventions. This is a picture of the lovely Aria Hotel's lobby. This is the photo that's on the website of the Aria's Hotel, or at least was at one time when I cropped it off of there. And it's very nice. I'm sure some of you have been there. But here's the thing. This, however, is my picture of my actual check-in experience at the Aria Hotel. You can see in the back there's the pink wall. Yeah, this was at least 45 minutes, maybe closer to an hour for me snaking through and being able to check in. Now, the point is not that they're false advertising that their check-in experience, that for a long time check-in experiences were disastrous, and perhaps once we get back from the COVID situation, hopefully they've worked these things out. But what's most interesting is that a hotel chain, the Gaylord, as some of you may have stayed there, has done some extensive research into this and has tied the check-in experience to the rest of your visit. If you have a pleasant check-in experience, if it's under, say, 5 minutes or so, and the person is pleasant to you and you get the room that you want and everything is in order, you are much more likely to have a pleasant stay the rest of your time there, at least in your mind. Whereas if you have, like I did, a 45-minute check-in experience, you're more likely to find things wrong. So walking around going, well, that ice sculpture looks kind of melting today, or those flowers aren't very fresh, or I found, a little something in the corner of the bathroom, piece of paper or something. I don't think the housekeeper did a very good job. So all of this is colored by your initial check-in. So the learning here, of course, is we've really got to learn to stick that landing as we onboard new customers into our organization. We've got to make sure that we get those early experiences, and even the experiences before they become customers, right? The whole prospecting situation has to be an extraordinarily pleasant experience for them as well, because this is what's called confirmation bias. Once you have it in your head, I'm going to have a nice experience at this hotel, it takes a lot to shake that from your mind. Now, it doesn't mean that you can, check in people and then abuse people. That's not going to work. But I think it's important to understand, if we're going to spend money on improving customer experience, best place to do it is on the front end as much as we possibly can. Okay. Another great example, and this is innovating around packaging. How does one present one's product? And now let's just do a quick experiment here. If you're the folks at Coca-Cola, if you're folks who are competing against Coca-Cola, and you say we're going to put up a new drink, and we're going to try and get into this category, and we know we're going to compete against Coke and Pepsi and all that, but what can we do? Well, you'd probably start to brainstorm and say, well, let's figure out a way. Maybe we should give them more. We'll make the can. We'll have the can bigger. Maybe what we can do is we can give them better price, maybe less money. Certainly, what we've got to do is we've got to come up with something that tastes fantastic and is just better than Coke. That's what we would have to do to try to get inroads here. Sell it at a lower price and perhaps give them more. Well, if you put that into the Harvard Business Review case study, you would certainly not get out Red Bull, which is what happened. And of course, did the exact opposite. They said, well, let's put it in a smaller can, let's charge more for it, and let's make it taste terrible too. Well, while we're at it, I'm kidding. I'm not a Red Bull fan. I'm not a Coke fan for that matter either. But the innovation here is around the packaging, because they marketed this, of course, as an energy drink. And by shrinking the can, by making the can smaller, what did it say? Concentrated. Concentrated. Now we have the competitors, 5-hour energy, that's a little even smaller. We get this tiny little thing. It's 12 cups of coffee in one tiny little. So more and more concentrated became the framework for this. And I'm sure that there was probably some conversation among the finance people saying, why are we doing this? Why don't we just go to market in regular standard 12-ounce cans like everybody else? There's no reason for us to retrofit and change the can and make it smaller. We can buy the packaging off the shelf at American Can Company. I'm making that part up. But you see what I'm saying? Is like it can ship in the trucks that we've already. So there'd be 1,000 reasons why you wouldn't go to market. But I personally think that it would have killed the product had they not innovated around this packaging piece. Interesting stuff. So how can you take what it is that you do and tweak your packaging, tweak the way you deliver it? Is there something that you could do to make it stand out a little bit more in some way? And I get that this becomes harder and harder as we do more and more things remote, and some of the work that we're sending is really just a PDF file, if anything. Sometimes it's just advice. But you may want to think about that as, what is it about around the packaging that you can do that would have an impact? All right, next up, talk a little bit about innovating around the way that the customer uses the product. And I love this example because this is one that I think has saved lives. This was in England. The folks at some pharmaceutical companies were coming to Ogilvy and Mather in the UK and saying, we have a problem because what happens, actually no, it was the pharmaceutical, it was the National Health Service. We've got this problem, you see, because people are not finishing their course of antibiotic when they're given it to them by the physician, and as a result of this, what happens is they take the first couple of pills over the first few days, they feel better, and then they say, well, let me save that, and if it comes back, I'll finish off the course of antibiotic. Now, what usually happens is that, yes, they do get well, but it doesn't kill the disease so quickly. And what we're finding is that these bacteria that are passed along from one person to the next after so many of them have been killed by the antibiotic are the stronger ones that are being passed from one person to the next to the next. And as a result, the antibiotics are not as effective, and we have to keep prescribing stronger and stronger antibiotics. So what they wanted Ogilvy to do is a public service campaign. Say, here's what we're going to do. You please take all of your course of antibiotic, billboards, side of the buses, in the tubes, all of this stuff to get the word out that people needed to finish their course of antibiotic. And what the vice chair of Ogilvy, a guy by the name of Rory Sutherland, I'll talk a little bit more about him in a second, said was, no, what we think we should do is this. We should change the customer usage. Let's put 6 white pills in the package and then 1 blue or red pill. And tell them the way that you take this drug is you take the 6 white pills and then the 1 blue pill. And what happened was a significant increase in the number of people who are finishing their course of antibiotics. This is fantastic. This is truly life-saving in that it now allows people to get well more fully, but not pass along those germs that are stronger and stronger and make the antibiotics in the long run less effective. And of course, you wouldn't have necessarily thought about this. The public services campaign was originally the way to go, but no, change the way people use this. The reason why this works, by the way, is called chunking. And I think it's very practical in terms of business. If any of you, for example, delegate work to either the other people inside your organization, or sometimes maybe people outside your organization, your customers, let's say, that they're supposed to do a certain number of work, and you have to delegate that work or give them some kind of an assignment, strongly suggest you think about tweaking it a little bit and start saying things like breaking it into multiple steps. Enter this data into the spreadsheet and then resave it with a new name. I'm just making something up. But you see, by breaking it into a multiple step process, the likelihood that it gets completed increases. Now, this is not to mix metaphors here, or maybe stay with metaphors. This is not a panacea. This isn't a trick that all of a sudden everybody's going to do what you ask them to do. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying, though, is that this significantly increases the probability that it will get done. And really, quite frankly, that's good enough for me. And I've tested this. It definitely works. When I delegate something to someone, I will artificially sometimes even break it into a 2 or more step process. And I think more likely than not, it ends up getting completed. Now, maybe that's just because I have a fantastic group of people that I work with, which is very true as well. But try it. See if it works for you. Next up, innovating around customer focused process. And this is something that stings a little, being someone who comes from the software industry. This goes back quite a ways. So if you read this article, you'll find it's from quite some time ago, but it's from Fast Company. It's called the $3 million Continue button. You may remember back in the days of old when we were first automating websites and integrating those with our ordering systems. And what would happen would be is you'd log into some website, or not log in, you'd go to some website, surf into some website, and you're like, oh, I think I might want to buy one of these things. So you're like, yeah, let's take a look at that. And the first thing that pops up is, oh, please fill out your customer information. Name, date of birth, how many kids you have, what their blood type is, all of this crazy stuff. And you, like I probably did, is like, back button. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. So what this company finally figured out is, oh, here's what we'll do. How about instead we'll let people put items into the shopping cart first. And then once they're ready to buy, we'll get their customer information. Now, the reason, of course, that we did it the other way was to satisfy the system need that the software companies put on. Is in order to create an order, we first have to create a customer record. So enter the customer, then we'll enter an order. And that was the process. So we just took what we're doing on the back end and automated it, not understanding that for a human, from an interactive perspective, they weren't willing to share that customer information until they first were committed to buy. Then once you have the stuff in the cart and you're like, yes, I'm ready to buy this, more than willing then to go back and fill out that customer information because, yes, I want to get my stuff. Really interesting that this process has shifted. And what you've seen, of course, again, becoming ubiquitous, is that everybody uses this continue button now. Now, the last one that I want to talk about, not fully the last one, but close to the last one, is innovating around nothing. Well, what I really mean is innovating around marketing. And the example here is this. This is a very interesting story. Shreddies is a strange whole grain cereal that's only available in Canada, Great Britain, New Zealand, and maybe South Africa. It's a weird thing that Post, the way that Post does this. But anyway, they have had this Shreddy cereal since, I don't know, the 30s or 40s. It goes back a long, long time. It's like our Chex, I suppose, or maybe even older than that, or shredded wheat. And they were really having some problems with this, and that the sales were way down. People weren't buying it. It was kind of boring, staid. And what they did was they came up with a campaign, and this was in Canada, that was based on really an absurd premise. And they just said that they came out with these diamond shreddies. And they did this whole campaign where they had people do taste tests, the square ones versus the diamond ones, and people saying that one tasted different. They didn't change the product at all. They just shifted the position on the box. I love this because it is literally, and by literally I do mean literally, not figuratively like most people mean, they literally changed the position on the box, and they changed their position in the marketplace, their marketing position, by saying, we have a sense of humor about ourselves. We think it's funny. They even came out with a box that just to follow up as a campaign, because there was some people in Canada who objected to the changing from the square shreddies to the diamond shreddies, that they came out with a combo pack, which was absolutely hysterical. You can find videos on this as well. Absolutely true story. But here's the lesson. 400% increase in year-over-year sales. Saved the brand, completely saved the brand, and they were able to now come out of this, and it's still, they haven't maintained that 400% increase, but they have maintained enough of it, and now it's become more of a health conscious decision thing that people have made. It's really come back quite strongly. Really interesting. So what can you do to modify your position in the marketplace? Great stuff to think about. What is your position on the marketplace? And this is the last one that I'm going to leave you with. Talk a little bit about this. I'm not going to go through all of the examples here on the slide, but you can get a feel for it. I think some of the things that all we need to do sometimes is innovate the language inside our organizations. Werner Erhard, who's the founder of EST, the Erhard seminar in the 70s. If you watch The Americans, it was a kind of a subplot of this. But Werner Erhard is weird guy. But one of the reasons I like him so much is he won a case against the IRS for that. They accused him of tax evasion, and he actually beat them in tax court, which is fantastic. But anyway, he says that all change is linguistic. If you want to change what's happening to you, you need to change your language. And these are just some examples that I have thought of over the years, and others have thought of, that say, hey, maybe we should change the language around this. Let's just take the first one: training versus education. If your organization offers, quote, training, maybe change it to education or product education, or describe that education in some way. From a marketing position, what can you charge more for, training or education? I think education is clearly the better word here, in that what we want to do is say, no, what we do is education. I love the third one down, discount. I hate the word discount. I hate discounting in general, but that's a whole nother story and a whole nother course. But what about a preferred price or a promotional price? I like this notion of a promotional price, because then it's clear that this is a one-time thing. It's a promotion. It's not, hey, we're giving you this 10% discount and you're going to have to use this all of the time. A couple more I want to share with you, this notion of staff versus colleagues. I don't like staff. I mean, staff sounds like an infection. I know there's some people do use team members or partners, that kind of thing. I think those are good. But a colleague seems to me to be the best, because it's a collegial atmosphere, especially in professional firms. Last one I'll just talk about quickly is this notion of efficiency versus effectiveness, or better yet, even efficaciousness. Peter Drucker, the great management thinker, defined things this way. He said, efficiency is doing the thing right. So doing whatever I'm supposed to do and, quote, doing it right. Effectiveness is doing the right thing. He did go on to say that there's nothing so wasteful, translation inefficient, but there's nothing so wasteful as doing that which is ineffective efficiently. And I think there's a challenge for all of us, because this is we've always done it that way notion, and we need to just get better at doing what we've always done. But maybe there's a new way that we can be more effective at it, rather than worry about efficiency. And right now I think there's a cult of efficiency in business. The Lean Six Sigma guru ninja turtle people, it just makes me a little bit crazy with their absolute obsession with efficiency. They talk a lot about it being, it's customer, blah, yeah. And then when you get down to brass tacks, it's usually, what are we going to do to make ourselves more efficiently? And that's somehow going to help the customer. Customer doesn't care about your efficiency. They don't care about how efficient you are. They care about how effective you are, or better, even, as I said, efficaciousness. Efficaciousness means to the maximum possible benefit. This is how drugs are tested. Is it efficacious? Thank God the COVID-19 vaccine from so many companies has been not only effective, but also efficacious. It's certainly, at least to me, proven to be the maximum possible benefit, far more even than the flu vaccines that have been around for a long, long time. Anyway, that's our presentation today. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation about innovating beyond technology. Here are my particulars if you need to get a hold of me, at Ed Kless on Twitter, or ed.kless@sage.com. You can send me an email there. Be happy to talk to you. If you're interested about this topic and more, I also do a radio show with a guy by the name of Ron Baker. You may have heard of him, called The Soul of Enterprise. Love for you to go out and check out that show over at The Soul of Enterprise. There's about 300 and something episodes out there for you to listen to. But thanks again. Hope you're enjoying the conference.